Good morning everyone. Jai Shri Krishna. Today I will give brief information about Sri Bhagwad Gita. Bhagwad Gita was originally compiled by Ved Vyasa as a separate text. Later, when he wrote the Mahabharata, he embedded Bhagwad Gita in it. The Mahabharata contains 100,000 verses and is therefore the largest poem in the world. Along with the Ramayana, it is accorded the status of Itihas, meaning the historical manuscript of India. Its stories and moral instructions have fashioned the fabric of Indian culture for thousands of years. The Mahabharata is divided into 18 sections. The Bhagavad Gita is set in the sixth section, which is called the Bhishma Parva. It comprises 18 chapters of the section, beginning from chapter 25 and continuing until the chapter 42. Since the Bhagavad Gita contains most of the important aspect of the knowledge of the Vedas, it is also called as Gita Upanishad. It serves two important purposes. One, it imparts Brahma Vidya, and second, it teaches the practice of yoga. It is the science of realizing the absolute truth. There is one absolute truth which has been referred to by many names such as Bhagwan, God, Lord, Ahurmasta, Alakh Niranjan, Srunya, Omkar, etc. All other truths have emanated from it and find their position in the scheme of things from it. Thus the Vedas state, Ekashmina Vignate Sarvamidam Vijnanam Bhavati, which means one who comes to know the absolute truth attains knowledge of everything. The science of knowing the absolute truth is called Brahma Vidya. The purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, above everything else, is to impart Brahma Vidya, the science of God realization. Knowledge that helps a person resolve immediate problems is one kind of enlightenment, while knowledge that dispels the root of ignorance to solve all problems in one strike is another kind of enlightenment. The Bhagavad Gita aims at the second kind of enlightenment by destroying the darkness of ignorance that has enveloped the soul since endless lifetimes. Unable to deal with the immediate problem at hand, Arjuna approached Sri Krishna for a palliative to overcome the anguish he was experiencing. Sri Krishna did not just advise him on his immediate problem, but digressed to give a profound discourse on the philosophy of life. The Bhagavad Gita is not a content with providing the lofty philosophical understanding. It also describes a clear-cut technique for implementing its spiritual precepts for everyday life. These techniques of applying the science of spirituality in our lives are termed as yoga. Hence, the Bhagavad Gita is also called Yoga Shastra, meaning the scripture that teaches the practice of yoga. Its 18 chapters are designed as different types of yoga because they deal with methodologies for the application of spiritual knowledge to practical life. These chapters also describe various systems of yoga such as Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. The Bhagavad Gita teachings are about cult and creed, which means there is one kind of teaching that propagates a dogma, cult, or creed. There is another kind of teaching that propagates ideals and life principles that are supremely above all cults and creeds. Scholars who regard the Gita as the fruit of some particular religious system do injustice to the universality of its message. Our approach in studying the Gita must therefore not be a scholastic or academic scrutiny of its message, nor an effort to place its philosophy in the context of contending the schools of thought. The Gita is not a treatise of metaphysical philosophy, despite the profusion of metaphysical ideas that arise from its pages. Instead, it seeks the highest truth for the highest practical utility, not for intellectual or even spiritual satisfaction, but as the truth that saves and opens to us the passage from our present mortal imperfection to an immortal perfection. We must therefore approach it for help and light in receiving the living message that can benefit human beings attain the highest welfare and spiritual perfection. The beauty about divine knowledge is that the more it is churned, the more nectar it produces, and hence the world has undoubtedly been enriched by these insightful commentaries. Simultaneously, we must be aware that commentaries by the great pontiffs conforms to their respective life missions. These great acharyas preach the absolute truth according to time, place, circumstances, always with the aim of well-being of humankind. Thus, they maintained a missionary zeal to propagate their favorite ideas and portray their respective perspectives in all the verses of Bhagwad Gita. While according to full respect to their accomplished works, we should bear in mind that Sri Krishna was not an Advaitavadi, Vashishta Advaitavadi, Dvaitavadi, or Dvaita Advaitavadi. Means he was not non-dualist, qualified non-dualist, dualist, dual non-dualist, but he was beyond the polemics of philosophers, and so was his message. Thus, we see how the principles of theism, asceticism, dualism, pragmatism, karma, jnana, bhakti, hatha, sankhya, etc. are all woven into his teachings. We must therefore be wary of limiting the meaning of Bhagavad Gita within the perspective of one philosophic tradition, and instead view it as the window to the whole absolute truth. The Bhagavad Gita brief introduction is finished here. Namaste.